Hey guys, welcome back to SourceFedNERD. I'm Sam Basher.
Philip Molina.
And last night we were able to see Marvel's newest movie, Doctor Strange. It's a pretty fun time. We were able to see it IMAX 3D, and we highly recommend it. But right now we want to do a quickie review so you guys can watch this and then go rush out and go see the movie. And don't worry, for the majority of this review, we are going to be doing it spoiler-free. At the very end, we're going to touch on a few spoilers, just a couple. But don't worry, you can watch a majority of this video without being spoiled, and then you can come back later and watch it and discuss with us in the comments down below. But overall, quickie review, what'd you think of it?
Innovative.
Yeah?
Mind-bending.
There you go. I would say creative. I was gonna say good. Oh, I'm good. I am definitely versed in my vocabulary.
Wow.
We should take one of those tests because I would be at 8th grade
What
level.
test?
There's a vocab
Words?
test. Yeah, word test. But guys, really quick, if you don't know anything about this movie and you stumbled onto this video, here's a quick synopsis that I don't really think does the movie justice, but here it goes. A former neurosurgeon embarks on a journey of healing only to be drawn into the world of the mystic arts. Wow. Currently, this movie's sitting on Rotten Tomatoes at 90%, certified fresh, pretty freaking cool, and it has a meta score of 72, which we hear is pretty damn good. So, I was very excited to see this movie. There was a lot of hype around it, but not as much as other Marvel movies, specifically like Civil War that came out this year, and even Deadpool, which is like a different branch of Marvel, had more hype around it.
I think you're going to see the same thing as the Guardians of the Galaxy effect, where it's like, who are these people? Oh, this movie's good, actually, and then word of mouth, and then people will be like, man, I love Doctor Strange since it came out in 1964.
Yeah. Same thing when like Thanos showed up at the end of Avengers, and they're like, who the fuck is that?
Apocalypse!
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, it's Thanos. It's like, of course it is.
That's what I meant.
For sure. But now, what did you think?
Overall.
Yes.
So let's start with overall thoughts. I love that this movie felt, I like this movie a lot. I love that it felt like it took place in the same world as the Avengers, but in a like adjacent mirror dimension of it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, the movie has a lot of astral projection and literally a mirror dimension. So it feels like, yes, in that world, magic is real, but it's taking place in a different plane of existence, which is like a challenge because the Marvel movies try to be very grounded.
Very scientific. Yeah.
Right, and so even bringing in Scarlet Witch's powers, they didn't actually make them feel like magic. They almost made them feel like just almost mutations, right? And which they're not allowed to say.
No, they're enhanced. Yeah, they're enhanced abilities.
But it doesn't feel like magic really exists in that world. And this movie is all in, 100% magic, and yet it works because it feels like, oh, it's been happening behind the scenes the whole time.
They're very hush-hush about it, and they do a good job of explaining, like, you know what, no, we don't really need to know, and, again, don't worry, guys, we won't go into spoilers, but they explain how they're able to maybe hide and cloak these events from happening so that normal people can't see it.
Right.
And which is amazing because this movie is able to delve into higher stake threats compared to like even a Thor movie, which is like otherworldly and he's a god and whatnot. But this is like, the scale of this movie is enormous, but overall, my thoughts is I love this. I loved the characters they introduced. I think this movie works so well because of who they cast in it, and I don't know if I don't know if the movie would have done as well if it were lesser known individuals, and I think Marvel made a purposeful choice there. The direction I thought was pretty good, but overall the reason why you guys should see this movie is for if you love magic whatsoever, this is a very cool take on it, and it's like I like that a lot of these movies when they delve into magic, they like to use different visual effects to explore this, and this feels so visceral and it feels like something tangible that if you knew the right thing, you could go out and grab it.
This feels like when you're a child, the first time someone hands you a kaleidoscope and you're like, what is this?
You get to reach inside of that and pull it out and play with it.
And it's like an adult version of like, holy crap, mind blown again. Here's the best sign for why this movie is solid. We're, 13 or 14 movies in now to the MCU. It's like 20 years into this thing. You watch this movie and you're not thinking, how does this connect to Avengers Infinity War? I wonder if when he's gonna go to the Avengers Tower. You actually don't really care. You're fully engaged in this brand new world that we've never seen in the MCU, and yet like it totally holds its own.
How'd you feel about the story overall?
I liked a lot of the choices. Well, when we get into the spoilers, I'll talk a little bit about how they did some story choices that the MCU doesn't always nail about how the smaller events earlier actually are prepping our mind for like the bigger things that will come, but we'll get to that later. Overall, just in the story, in terms of there's a consistent theme of you get what's coming to you. Like I think they say bills come due.
Yeah,
I think they keep saying that. You pay for what you've used and what you've tried, and I think your choices come back.
One of the classic themes in Doctor Strange is that magic comes at a price, and they're really hammering that home with this movie. And this is. I will say that this is an origin story that you feel like maybe you've seen before, but they tread so much new territory and they go at it from so many different angles and even from like different dimensions. You're like, you know what? I don't even care. I enjoy this.
Yeah, again, it's a little hard to talk about the story without going into spoilers, but I'll say in terms of or there's literally people walking by with their hands over their ears right now. So in terms of it being an origin story, you're going to hear the complaint like, you've seen one Marvel origin story, you've seen them all. I'm going to argue against that. This movie is a more extended origin story than you would think. By the time you finish watching this movie, think about the character of Doctor Strange embracing being Doctor Strange and being a sorcerer. He isn't there until the entire movie has happened. Mm-hmm. Normally, origin by formula takes place in the first act of the movie, and then by midway of Act 2, they do the montage where it's like, "Whoa, I'm web slinging and I'm nailing it," and like then they're like full on the hero. This movie, he's not Doctor Strange until the movie's over, really.
And maybe he's not even there yet, which is really cool.
Right.
You're left
at least in terms of arc.
Right? Yeah, but no, that's what I like as well too. But for story. I don't know. I think the reason why this story works so well are the characters, and I think out of everyone, this is surprising. Like Benedict Cumberbatch nails it. Tilda Swinton,
of course, he nails it.
Tilda Swinton, she's powerhouse, and I think I think Marvel fought the hardest to get her into this movie to make this role so believable and grounded at the same time, like mind blowing. But I think. If I were to name like 3 of my favorite characters, even though all of them are the best, are amazing, I would go with Wong, the Ancient One, and actually Rachel McAdams, Christine Palmer. Shocking.
So, if we go into the characters here for a little bit, we're going to talk about more the actor portrayals than exactly what happens with those characters. So yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch, no shit, nails it, right? Yeah. His American accent, by the way, solid.
Yeah, trailers don't do it justice. As soon as he starts talking, you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you can do it.
But he is the perfect kind of, I mean, he's had practice being an asshole that you come to really like. It is a bit like Sherlock, but that said, he nails that. He is Doctor Strange. I think that was perfect casting. Tilda Swinton, though, steals every scene that she is in. And you kind of mentioned it, but I want to reiterate, she plays the Ancient One nuanced. It's a human being who has this title currently. And it's really easy when you have these roles of like, I'm the wise Eastern figure. They're always like perfect, and they say like, you know, perfect little cookie, fortune cookie wisdom here. And it feels cheap. And it actually felt like, no, this is a legitimate human being who's kind of funny at times, but also flawed.
Yeah.
And that was my favorite thing about a portrayal, is just like, oh, someone has been endowed with this position, which obviously is how they deal with the whitewashing thing, is they turned it into a title that you receive. But it actually, when you watch it, it works so well. There even was a little call out of like what the Ancient One normally looks like. You'll see it in the movie, and they're like, "Oh, don't worry about that. Forget everything you've known."
Oh, that's a big theme as well. Yeah. But also, speaking about making characters human, like Marvel movies sometimes have a problem with bringing in a villain that is lesser known, and then kind of making them one note, and like they get some funny one-liners, but at the end of it, you're like, I don't know, you're kind of forgettable. But with this, Mads Mikkelsen, just being himself and a phenomenal actor, and the way that he was directed and written, he was compelling and he was human. You understood what he was doing in this movie.
We were talking about it earlier, and we just realized, you know how you have a good villain is when they give their pitch for what they think is right. You're kind of like, oh, you're right, actually. And I'll say they went like out of like 10 stars of good villainhood, they got like 7 stars in of like, oh, this guy makes sense. And then I feel like they maybe pulled back a little bit on letting him really explain his case, because he delivers a lot of, I don't want to say the exposition, but the explanation of the without spoiling it, the greater threats.
Yeah.
He's almost a little bit of the Wikipedia page of like, here's how the greater threats work.
To be fair, most of these characters are Wikipedia pages.
Right, they have to explain a lot.
Because like with Iron Man, you're like, no, that's like a rocket. He's got a rocket on his feet.
Right,
and like
right.
Captain America's like, no, Nazis. We get Nazis. Like, no, this is like, no, we got like magic and like wands and like we're flying around and there's like we're in like another dimension or something. It's like, no, we have to take a second and explain it. And that I think they handled very well.
Yeah.
But overall, the reason why you guys should see this movie right now are for the visual effects, and specifically in IMAX 3D. What did you think of the visual effects overall?
No, people are going to compare it to Inception, and that's fine.
That's fine.
Because it
It's gonna
actually
happen.
feels like the next step beyond that. It
Yeah.
just is the best visual effects you've seen in one of these movies. Watch it in 3D, and then maybe watch it not in 3D. I don't like watching movies in 3D, but it
Me
legitimately was like, oh, I needed to see, maybe it's like 3 sequences in 3D, but it's mind-blowing.
And those are the ones that are in IMAX as well. They're
Right.
like they're specifically you can see like the aspect ratio or like just you can just see that the whole entire film morphs to properly display what they want to show. The visual effects in this movie, I can't stress enough, are things that you have never seen before unless you have taken heavy hallucinogenics. Like this is. I can't even imagine some of these things. I don't know, like, they're just, like, snowballing imagination on top of, like, different ideas and things, and all of a sudden it's over, and you're like, I have no idea how a human being, or even a team of human beings, came up with this. So,
I mean, they dropped acid.
That's
That's how they did
And then
it,
they're, like,
yeah.
animating, they're like, hey, now the train's gonna come
And
in
someone
here.
has to, like, guide them, like, no, you're not drawing
Back
on
here,
anything.
back
Over here.
Don't eat the mouse. Yeah, you're good. And we're good.
Real quick, let's jump into spoiler territory. But for non-spoiler, it's amazing. It's unlike any other MCU movie. Obviously, go see it.
Let's give it a quick rating. Out of 10 Cumberbatches, what would you give it?
I'll give it a solid 8.5 but
Batches.
there's like 10 letters in Cumberbatch.
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot of those. Yeah. Oh, you're just spelling it out. 8.5?
ATC. Oh, 8.
Yeah, I'll give it like. Okay. Yeah, I'll give it 8. I'll give it like 8.75. A little high.
I was thinking you were gonna say 8.8, and I round. So yeah.
A little round. I think I enjoyed it more than you, and more than a couple other people that we saw it with. But
I loved it. By the way,
I loved it too. I highly recommend it. But yeah, I'll give it. I'll round up. I'll give it 8 Cumberbatches. But right
you
now,
rounded down.
did I? What did I say? Sorry, 9.
8.75.
I got a 9. Sorry, 9 didn't count. My bad.
there you go.
I'll give it 9. Look at that. It's an A. Isn't
Cool.
that great?
You ready for some spoilers?
Ooh, I'm ready.
Real quick spoiler thoughts. All right. First off, I want to say that this movie nailed their theme and it being introduced early but subtly, but being omnipresent. So it's all about time and the
Yes.
idea of Strange having to step outside of the rules of time and the rules of what he knows. Or like you said earlier, forget everything you've known. He has to do that. So in a very early scene in the movie, he's performing surgery, and he tells another doctor, the guy's about to die, and he's like, we have no time. And he tells another doctor to cover his watch. And it's like a small annoyance thing where it's just ticking too loudly. But if you think about it, it's like, no, I can't deal with the rules of time. And then when we come back to the end, which is the best ending concept I think I've seen in a Marvel movie.
The final.
Yeah, so he traps him in a time loop. He has to leave the rules of time.
He creates hell for a demon.
Yeah,
How do you do that? And like it basically instead of getting just an epic like punch out, you get someone outsmarting the devil, basically.
Right, and
which
so
is amazing.
so
and
that,
a tie back to the original comic as well, how he dealt with it.
Right, so that level of like ingenuity that they had in the storytelling, and that theme is constantly there. His watch being broken throughout the whole movie is a big point. I was just like, oh man, the screenwriters behind this thing, even though the visuals are what you're going to remember, the screenwriting is so solid as a foundation, and thematically it's just perfect.
And I think on a broader scale, I think that this has some of the most impressive set pieces of any blockbuster I've seen. Specifically, like the one like everyone's going to talk about the first time he is like thrown into the multiverse because of the ancient one, which is amazing, and it's insane, and like I have to see it like 3 more times to fully grasp what I saw. But the final fight, the little hands. But the final fight of having time move in reverse and you trying to save people, you end the movie is at the end of the fight where the heroes lose, and he's like, no, we're gonna go ahead and reverse that, and we're gonna go ahead and fight through it.
If you have these powers, we were saying this last night, it's like, okay, a lot of movies have dealt with time travel or dealt with like a wizard's level of powers, and it's like, no. If you have those powers, you cheat. You play dirty. You're like, oh, he died? Let's go back.
There are consequences, and they do bring that up, which you should, because you can't just do whatever you want. But
Barry knows about consequences of the timeline.
Right, little flash fact. But this movie is like, no, let's have as much fun as possible with what is at our fingertips. And like, they also throw in like a lot of Marvel like nods to other characters and beings. Like, there's a moment where Mordo, also fantastic character played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, but he pulls out a staff and he says, oh, it's the staff of the Living Tribunal. And the Living Tribunal is a cosmic entity that will, let's be real, is never going to be in any movie, but just getting that mention, the way that they handled it, was beautiful.
It's a good sign for Infinity War, too, that they're like doing it right. But speaking of Chiwetel's character, Baron Mordo is perfectly set up at the end of the entire post-credits thing or whatever to be such a great villain. I'm actually more excited for Doctor Strange 2.
Yes. Because this did feel like an origin. Let's get his full story
And
now.
so Mordo, I think, is actually set up to be a better villain because Doctor Strange caused him to believe what he believes now. And so it's a very personal conflict that they're going to have. And I think that's going to be great. Real quick, shout out to the cloak.
The cloak,
such a good, so good. Yeah. The head slamming into the ground.
But also, it's like something caught in the wind. Like the dude is like stuck in like it's like a
what
trap.
A miserable freaking time.
That would be hell. If you're trapped in just a cloth that's sentient and throwing you around. That way, and I will say some of the humor in this movie doesn't always nail it, but anything that happened with the cloak, I was a big fan.
And
of.
Wong, you liked a
lot.
And
I really enjoyed Wong. I thought the jokes that Benedict would throw at him weren't always the best, but the way Wong would handle it and throw it back made it very good. I'm glad that Wong was in this movie. I'm glad that we were able to see this side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But that being said, any final thoughts on this movie?
They destroyed a city like every Marvel movie, and then they undid it.
Yes, that's how you get away with it with magic. You just and turn back the time.
But that's how refreshing this movie is to watch, where it's just like, oh, if you feel like tired of Marvel movies, like this is a completely different thing, and yet it has its niche in there.
I am a huge fan of this movie. I'm going to actually see it again tonight, and probably will see it again over the weekend. But guys, let us know what you thought of Doctor Strange on Twitter, at Sam Basher.
At Fimo.
Or at SourceFed,
Okay, they get it. They know your name, dude.
Gotta say it a couple more times. Or at SourceFedNERD, or in the comments of this video. Guys, make sure you give this video a like, share it, and subscribe. Go enjoy this movie. See it as quickly as you can with all of your friends. IMAX 3D, highly recommend it.
Yeah, and then watch it again, not in 3D.
Yes. Oh, I'm gonna see that tonight. I'm very excited to get a different perspective on this movie.
Oh yeah, it's one to watch again and again and again. And if you imbibe in chemicals, maybe do so.
Jesus Christ, that would be a nightmare. Oh man, but awesome movie, guys. We love you, Sam,
Philip,
and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
When you look at the two most famous lovers of Peter Parker, Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy, people seem to be pretty divided.
Flashback, the fastest way to concern your audience is to start cycling through directors like an indecisive car DJ. Just pick a damn song and stick with it to the end.